Hey loves, what's up? It's Christina Giselle. Welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new, I post videos on motherhood and lifestyle, and today I'm going to be discussing baby LED weaning. If you ever wondered what baby LED weaning is, or if you're interested in starting your baby on baby LED weaning, I'm going to be talking about the basics, how to start, what to do, so continue to watch. So my daughter is baby LED wed, and I've been doing it since she was around 6 months old. At first, I wasn't sure if I wanted to baby LED wed because there are a lot of different concerns on whether you should do it. But to break it down, baby LED weaning is basically skipping purees and allowing your baby to be able to finger food themselves. So you can give baby actual food and you don't have to start them off with purees, and it can be started at 6 months old. But the way I did it is that I decided to actually give my baby purees at 6 months and wait on the baby LED weaning, because most baby LED weanings skip purees altogether. But my baby did try purees and she liked it for a little bit, and then I realized that she just wanted to use her hands and discover and try different foods. She was like over puree. So I started to transition her into baby LED weaning, which is something that you guys could do if you choose, or you can just choose to baby LED wean from day one. It's really up to you. So if you're interested in baby LED weaning and you're wondering, when should my baby start? Are they ready? Should I really do this? The answer is, if your baby is starting to show curiosity about food, they're looking at you while you're eating, if they're starting to show curiosity every time you bring out food, if they're starting to take their hands and bring it to their mouths, and if they're starting to be able to show like a chewing motion with their mouths, they're probably ready to start baby LED weaning. Another thing that is important to know is your baby should not be starting baby LED weaning until they're able to properly sit up in a high chair or properly sit up in a bumper booster seat chair. So that way they're able to digest well. So if your baby is showing any signs of those, then yeah, your baby is able to baby LED wean, and why not, just transition them and try to see if they show any interest and have them explore new foods. A very important thing of what not to do when you are deciding to baby LED wean is do not stop feeding your baby milk. So if your baby is breastfed or formula fed, baby LED weaning is a transition of them to understand food and be able to get some other nutrition outside of you. But milk is recommended for the first year of life as the main nutrition that a baby should be getting. So I know for me, I'm a breastfeeding mom. So when I did decide to baby LED wean and my doctor told me it was okay to start feeding my baby solids, I always made sure that I was breastfeeding my baby before I started feeding her food. So every time I knew that I was gonna feed her food, I breastfed her first. Yes, she may not have such a huge appetite when she is getting those baby LED weaning foods, but it's important for her to be able to have her nutrition before those foods, because what if she decides that she doesn't like what you're feeding her and she just throws it, or she has a little bit of it? You want to know that she's making sure that she's getting that nutrition from breast milk or formula milk first. Just think about it as you're really hungry and you're trying something new, and then you realize after you eat this new food that you hate it and you're starving. You're like, why didn't I eat something I liked before I tried this new food? That's what it's like for a baby. So make sure that you do not stop feeding your baby the milk that it needs, and that you're always giving your baby the breast milk or the formula before you're introducing them to a new food. Baby LED weaning is really important as well because it allows your baby to learn how to chew and bring motion in their mouth to properly be able to eat. So introducing them to actual real solid foods is a great way to introduce them to that skill and that developmental milestone for them to be properly using the motions in their mouth to be able to swallow. I know that the main concern I had with starting to baby LED wean was whether my baby was going to be able to actually swallow the food. I was scared that my baby was going to choke. Now, there's a difference between choking and gagging, and gagging is totally natural, and your baby is going to gag. That's how your baby is going to learn to eat. The good part is your baby is not like an adult. Their gag reflex is actually further up in the mouth, so that way the food doesn't actually go as far as it would as an adult. And it's okay, your baby's going to gag, they may spit up, and that's teaching them to learn. Now, the difference between gagging and choking, and I'll be sure to link a video or a website below in the description box so you can get more information on that, is when your baby gags, they're going to turn red and they're going to spit and they're going to start choking. It's important to allow them to gag themselves naturally so that they could be able to learn from that and be able to understand that they can't push that much food into their mouths. And choking is when your baby is actually turning blue and can't breathe. So you feel, if your baby starts to not turn red and they start to turn blue, then it's very important that you try to start child CPR. And that's why, as well as before you start baby led weaning, if you want to feel comfortable, make sure you take an infant CPR class or even watch a YouTube video, which I'll link below as well. And that's what I was able to do, because during the process of baby led weaning, I couldn't find a class that I was able to go to in time. So I just watched a few YouTube videos and I was able to understand the process of being able to give my child CPR. And yes, it is really scary, but your baby, if you feed them properly and you make sure you cut their foods properly, you're less likely to have a baby choke on their food. Gagging is natural and choking is bad. And just know that your baby is more likely to gag than to actual choke. The weaning process actually begins the first time your baby takes food for the first time. And your baby is then, from that step moving forward, is weaning itself off of breast milk and formula. Now, if you're a breastfeeding mom like me, weaning actually means the opposite. It means to try to get your baby to stop having breast milk. But when it comes to weaning and baby led weaning, weaning is actually getting your baby to start eating solids. So baby led weaning is really great because it is the first step in getting your baby to have other nutrients other than the milk that it's been getting from formula and breast milk. Okay, so to prepare yourself for baby led weaning, there are a few tools that I know I was able to get in order to start. So one of the important tools are being able to, I'll make sure to insert it up above, to get bibs for your baby to eat. I like getting the bibs that have the little pocket so that when they're eating, their food falls inside the pocket. Or you can get one of those like smock shirts that kids wear. I know they sell them online on Amazon, IKEA, they sell them all over the place. So being able to have a few different types of bibs are great. Make sure that you have a high chair because, like I said earlier in the video, your baby should be sitting up properly before you start feeding your baby solids. And at 6 months is the recommended age to introduce solids. Another thing that is really important is to make sure that your baby has proper utensils. Now, yeah, they're probably going to start feeding with their hands at first. You want to be able to introduce utensils as you start progressing into baby led weaning so that they could be able to use their motor skills and be able to learn how to use a fork or a spoon and understand the concept that food does go in a bowl or a plate. So I'll be sure to link the items that I use below. I also use a crinkle cutter when it comes to cutting my food. A crinkle cutter is really important to use. You're able to cut your baby's food in a way that gives them a grip. A lot of foods that you can give your baby is slippery. So being able to use a crinkle cutter that gives different grips allows your baby to be able to grasp onto the food so that they're able to hold on to it better. And I know it's really good at cutting all the different foods, and even after you're done baby led weaning, I use it in the kitchen all the time for regular food as well. And also, if you are starting to feed your baby solids, you want to introduce water. So it's up to you whether you start using a sippy cup with a little, bottle spout, whether you want to use a sippy cup with a straw or you want to use a regular cup. I know for me, I started with a regular plastic spout sippy cup from Munchkin. I'll be sure to link that below. But I also have a sippy cup with a straw that I am trying to introduce her so she could be able to use a straw. But it is recommended that you try to have your baby sip from an actual cup. So they are actual little tiny cups that are proper for babies to be able to use. I want to start introducing that to my baby now. My baby's 10 months old, and I've noticed that when I hold on to like a plastic cup and I have her drink from it, she likes it. So I know I didn't start that way because I just didn't want to make a mess, but introducing her to the proper, you know, regular type of ways that we drink and eat is really good for their development. And if that's something that you want to try, you can do that too. That's important to introduce into the things that you need for baby-led weaning. What I love about baby-led weaning is you can feed your baby whatever food you want. So if you're making a dinner for your baby and you want to eat the same thing, that's great. You can just put a little aside like I do. Make sure that you don't put salt, because your baby is not supposed to get a certain amount of salt each day. It's bad for them. I try not to add salt or sugar, but I do add natural ingredients like garlic or onion powder or Italian seasoning, things like that, so that your baby does enjoy getting some form of flavor, because I think that's actually what my baby did not like from purees. She wanted more flavor. She loved fruits and things, but she was ready to just use her hands and be able to dig in and start feeding herself. She wanted that independence when it came to being able to baby-led wean. Okay, so when it comes to what are you going to feed your baby and how to start, just know that it's best and recommended that you start with one kind of food. So introducing just one food will have your baby, you know, recognize the texture, the smell, the taste. And also it's really important to do because you want to make sure you are learning about the allergies that a baby may have. So before you even start baby-led weaning, I would also keep in mind the type of food allergies that your family members have. So when you're introducing a food, always make sure you have some children's Benadryl at hand. I know my pediatrician recommended that I do that. So if your baby has allergic reaction to like strawberry or any other type of food, you immediately can give her or him that. I know my baby sometimes had a reaction to mango, so I just stopped feeding it to her. I fed it to her a few times and I noticed that she got blotchy around her mouth, and I was like, she's probably has some form of allergic reaction to it, so I'm just gonna not introduce it. So always make sure you only try one food type every like 4 days. I would wait before you introduce another food, but once you know that they're good at liking one type of food, you can include it with the next type of food that you're going to introduce. Another thing that's really important when it comes to what you are feeding your baby is you want to make sure that the food is soft enough for the baby to swallow. So you want to be able to steam your food or just be able to give food that is really soft so your baby can grasp. And you also want to make sure that it's large enough so that they don't choke on it as well. So I'll be sure to introduce a picture right here for you guys to be able to see the proper ways in cutting and the sizes of the type of foods that you should be introducing to the babies. So the best type of food I would recommend as first foods to introduce is avocado. Avocado is super soft and squishy. Babies love it. Some babies don't actually, but it is a really good type of food to try because it is so mushy for them to be able to eat. And if you're cutting it with that crinkle cutter that I was just talking about, it's really easy for your baby to grasp. You could even leave the skin on, which is recommended for a lot of fruits and vegetables, so that your baby has even more grasp on grabbing it. Another really good fruit, I know that I first gave my baby sweet potato. I try to introduce vegetables before fruits because if they like too much fruits, they probably won't like the vegetables. Sweet potato is a really good vegetable to try. Banana, just things that you could steam or that are already really soft are great types of foods to introduce for baby-led weaning. Now, if you want to introduce your baby to meats, I know that may sound scary because meats are big. My baby loves meat. She is such a carnivore. She likes meat over chicken, and she eats chicken too. If you do want to introduce meats, it's good for you to be able to give them pieces that aren't too big. So unlike fruits and vegetables where you want to give like a rectangular piece, I would give pieces that are a little smaller for meats, and make sure that the meat is not super chewy so that they can be able to chew on it. I know for my baby, since she does love meats, I give her smaller pieces than I would usually, but introducing meat into a baby's diet is really important because it's so high in iron and protein, and that's really good for them. I know I also give her a lot of like ground turkey or ground beef, so I feel a little more comfortable with her eating it, but don't skip out on meats. Meats are really good for them. Something that is really important for you to remember when you're feeding your baby is never, I mean never, give your baby anything with honey. Honey has an ingredient that is poisonous to babies, and it could actually harm your baby. Your baby could be poisoned from it. So never give your baby any honey, and do not give your baby any whole milk. Whole milk does not have the proper nutrition for your baby like it does for us. So make sure that you're never giving your baby any whole milk, as well as make sure you are not giving your baby salty or sugary foods or products. It's just not good for their system. It's best that you keep your baby healthy. I mean, salty and sugary food isn't good for adults. So just know that if it's not good for an adult, don't give it to a baby. Okay, so how to baby led wean. So the first thing that's really important is make sure your baby is able to sit up, because if your baby is not sitting up properly, your baby can choke. Another thing that is important is that you understand that it's baby led weaning, so they have to learn to eat on their own. They're going to use their fingers at first, so make sure that your baby is able to grasp onto the food and feed themselves, because if they're not able to feed themselves, they're most likely able to harm themselves. So if your baby is ready to feed themselves, allow them to be able to have the option to grab their food and bring it to their mouth. Make sure that your baby is capable of chewing and is able to make the chewing motions, because you want to make sure that if they're actually grabbing the food and placing it to their mouth, that they're actually chewing and not just leaving it in their mouth, which could actually make them choke. So just make sure. The number one thing I always did is I had my eyes on my baby the whole time. I never took it off of her because I always wanted to make sure I was aware of what was going on. So just make sure that you're watching your baby as they eat. Sometimes you could even like videotape them just so that you remember the experience. And remember, gagging is normal. Your baby's going to gag. You're introducing them new food, so it's totally normal for them to gag. So don't worry about it, mamas. Babies are gonna gag. And it's important to also understand that this is a learning experience. So they're probably going to just play with the food, smash the food. Every time I gave my baby food, she probably ate like 10% of it in the beginning. So don't get frustrated if your baby isn't eating it. They're learning and they're exploring. That's why it really is important that you're feeding them formula and breast milk before you feed them, because since they are learning and exploring, they're not going to eat all the food. It's totally normal. They're trying to understand whether they like it or not. Some babies will love food and some babies will be picky like mine. So it's totally normal if your baby is not eating all their food, if they're just smashing it and playing with it. It's really good for them to actually feel the food and feel that type of texture and understand the whole concept and grasp what it is that food actually is. So don't worry. If you're a new mama who is starting baby-led weaning and your baby is around 6 months old, 7 months old, understand that they're really not going to understand the concept of baby-led weaning as well until they're around like 9 to 12 months. So like I said, they're going to feel the food, touch the food, put the food to their mouth, learn all those types of things, and that is great in their development, but they probably won't really enjoy eating until they're like around 9 to 12 months. I know my baby is 10 months and she is, I think around 9 months, she did start enjoying and understanding, like, I like these foods, I want to eat, like put it down for me to grab and to eat. So if your baby's younger than that, just know that eventually they will learn to eat. Some babies don't even like to eat until after 1 year old, and that's okay. So until your baby masters the pincer grip, I know my baby learned to master it around like 9 months, be able to grab like this. Until your baby learns to do that, make sure you are cutting the food in rectangular shapes. I'll insert the picture above how to cut baby-led weaning foods properly so that they're able to grasp onto it properly, because like I said earlier, food is really slippery. And until that, you can be able to give them small foods for them to learn how to grasp, like Cheerios or those baby puffs, so that they can learn how to just be able to grab little foods like that. Foods that I would say melt in their mouth, so that, because you don't want to give them small foods to choke on, but foods that like puffs and like little crackers for babies that they can just learn how to grab like that will teach them how to master the pincer grip so that they can evolve in their eating habits. And just know that your baby will eventually master eating, and this is just the start, it's just the beginning. So just continue introducing baby-led weaning types of foods to them, and they'll learn to master it within a few months. The sooner you start, the sooner they'll get better at doing it. Now, when it comes to how many times you should feed your baby, I would start with 1 time a day. If you're just starting out and your baby is, 6-7 months old, I would start feeding them at 6 months one time a day, and then at 7 months 2 times a day. And then once you get to 8 months, you can feed them like 3 times a day. And as they get older, you could do 3 times a day and 2 snacks. So it all depends on the maturity of your baby and how much they eat and what they are learning to eat. So I know I started with 1 time a day, and I eventually just picked up. You'll figure it out as well as you go. Like I said, when babies are hungry, they put their hand to their mouth, so you'll know when your baby's hungry. Give them the formula or the breast milk, and then introduce a baby-led weaning food and see if they want to eat it a lot. You don't have to make a lot, give them a little, see if they want to eat it, and if they eat it, then you'll know that they're hungry. And if not, that's okay too. But I would always start at 1 time a day and just continue to progress as they get older. Now, how long does it take for your baby to eat? For my baby, she can be a fast eater and a slow eater, so it all depends. Like, every baby is different, so I can't really give you the best advice on how long it's going to take. Some babies could take like 5 minutes if they love their food, and some babies can take up to like 20 minutes, 30 minutes if they are playing with their food and slowly eating, slowly chewing. So it all depends. So if you want to make sure your baby is not eating too late, I would start dinner a little earlier than usual. I know for us as a family, we eat around 6:30, but my baby does go to bed at like 8:39. So it all depends on your baby's schedule too. I would recommend not feeding your baby too late in the day before they go to bed, because just like adults, it's not good to go to bed right after you eat, so that way they are able to digest properly. But that's pretty much how long it does take. So just, figure that out with your schedule on what works best for you guys. So when you're first starting to baby-led wean, make sure there's no distractions like a TV or people, around not eating. What I did first is feed your baby like you were going to have a meal as a family. So if it's dinner time, for example, make sure you guys are all sitting at the table. If you say grace as a family, say grace as a family. If your baby wants to see like, oh, this is a thing, like I'm doing it with you guys, this is great. So make sure there's no distractions and they're just focused on, sitting down with you. If you're eating the same type of food, they'll probably show more interest because babies want everything that you're playing with. So if you're eating the same type of food, your baby will probably want to eat the food as well. So as you're eating, make sure you're feeding baby, and just take turns feeding the baby and eating, and that will actually help assist them in being able to eat. Also, make sure that you have everything prepared. Make sure you have the bib, make sure you have the utensils, all the things that I have mentioned, make sure you have that prepared for your baby to have. So always make sure you have that water. The water does help with their digestion, so it prevents your baby from being constipated as well. So having water, introducing water while your baby's eating is really important. Remember, when you're first starting, do not give your baby too many options. Start with one specific food, and then they will develop their palate and figure out what other foods you can introduce well. So for example, if you're going to be feeding your baby avocado and you figured out your baby likes avocado, then the next food option could be carrots. And then with the carrots, if they like the carrots, then you can be able to give them avocado and carrots, or just one at a time. As your baby gets older, I know I feed my daughter 3 different options with each meal, but when they're first starting out, you can start with 1 option, the next month 2 options, and then just grow from that. But if you're giving them just too much stuff, they just get overwhelmed, and then they'll just start playing with their food, smashing it, throwing on the floor, and you don't want to deal with that. What's most important is that you allow your baby to feed themselves. That is the whole point of baby-led weaning. They are learning to wean themselves onto food, so you have to allow them that independence to be able to feed themselves the food. Now, there might be some times where you could offer hand feed your baby something, but once in a while. Don't let that be the main way that you're feeding your baby. Allow them to use their hands and bring their hand to their mouths and feed themselves. Feeding is the main purpose of baby-led weaning, and if you don't allow them to self-feed, then you're taking away from what this actually is supposed to be. And that's the fun of it all. They're learning to eat, and it's supposed to be a fun, great time for them to learn to explore. So what the cutest thing is when your baby is understanding and actually doing the eating and understanding the concept. Make sure that you give your baby, sprinkle little positive praises to them. Not too much, but just a little, and just let them know like, oh, you're eating, that's great, good baby. Eat the carrot, eat the meat. Like, you're saying certain things to them for them to understand what they're actually doing, and make sure you praise them for doing it. Now, don't go overboard. Also, what I make sure to do before we do any meal, me and my husband actually made up a song so my baby knows that it's time to eat, because I know my daughter, sometimes she doesn't like sitting in the high seat, so I have to do a little song for her to understand that it's mealtime. So if you want to make a little song or just tell them it's mealtime, it's dinner time with mommy, daddy, Lena. It's dinner time. You ready to eat? I think my number one advice would be, when it comes to baby-led weaning, is that you respect your baby's wishes when it comes to eating. Do not force your baby to eat food just because you put it out there for them to eat, or just because you made it for them to eat. Just let them eat what they want to eat. It's all learning experience for them, especially if they're under a year old. Respect their wishes and be patient with them, and remember to just reintroduce foods and learn what they're allergic to, what they like, what they don't like. And even if they don't like something at first, you never know, a month or two later they might like it. I know that happened with my daughter. She didn't like butternut squash at first. I reintroduced it to her like a few weeks ago. She loves it now. So don't get frustrated, be patient, and just respect that your baby is gonna wanna eat what they wanna eat, and they're gonna be messy, and just let them be babies. And remember that you're continuing to teach them, and don't force anything onto them. Let them go at their own pace and enjoy the moment. So those are the basics of baby-led weaning. I know it's a lot to take in, but baby-led weaning is a fun experience to be able to introduce to your baby. Just remember not to be scared about it. Introduce it to your baby and try it out. If they like it, they do. If they don't, they don't. You'll never know unless you try. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you found it informative. If you did enjoy it, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you can find out when my videos come out every week. I love making these videos for you, and I hope you guys are doing well, you're staying safe, and I'll see you in the next video.